Welcome to Yoga for Runners. These are my top poses that I use to take care of muscles and joints that runners use the most and to help prevent injury. Start by kneeling on the floor. Take a big step forward with the heel of one leg and then lean into the front leg and find yourself in a low lunge position. Try to adjust to stack that front knee over the ankle and then use the hands to brace yourself on that front knee to keep your torso upright. By doing this, you let gravity pull your hips and pelvis down towards the floor, stretching the front of the hip and then the back of the other leg as well. Play around with your weight placement, maybe try to lean and fold forward a bit, finding what feels best to your body and where you need that stretch the most. I recommend at least 10 rounds of breaths here, breathing deep and then working your way to the point where maybe you can take arms above the head and completely let gravity pull your hips down towards the floor. To transition to this next pose, all we're going to do is rock our weight back over the back knee, straightening out that front leg and folding forward into a half split, or also called a runner's stretch. So this, we're going to support ourselves either on the floor if you can keep a straight spine, or onto a block, or even holding onto the shin, just hinging forward from the hips. So first, make sure that your hips are nice and square, both hip bones pointed towards the top foot, and then hinging forward with a nice long spine, ideally reaching towards the floor or bracing yourself on that leg, and then feeling that stretch on the hamstring. And then keeping your foot and knee exactly where they are, you can rock the weight back forward and transition between these first two poses, breathing inhale into your lunge and then shifting the weight back to exhale into your hamstring stretch. Take this about 10 times, breathing nice and evenly and getting some mobility in the hamstring and hips. And of course, make sure you're doing everything on both sides to evenly stretch and mobilize those joints, paying close attention and giving some extra attention to anything that feels tight on one side of the body so you can increase mobility and maybe give it a little bit more help. Our next transition isn't going to be not just a stretch, but a strengthening exercise. In your low lunge, we're going to press into the ball of the foot and rise up into a high lunge. So our knee is still stacked over that front ankle. We're just straightening all the way into the back leg, staying upright, hands on the hips, and then with control, lowering the knee back down to the floor into your low lunge. And then exhale as we lift off back to high lunge. This is great for strengthening and stabilizing the knees and ankles and preventing injury there as we have high impact activity like running. Inhale to low lunge and exhale as you push into the floor and rise up to high lunge, taking care to do this about 10 times on each side, noticing any differences or imbalances on each side of the body. From a lunge position, step the back foot in about 1 foot length and straighten into both legs to come into a pyramid stretch. So you might have to fiddle around with the distance between your feet to find what's right for your leg length, but we want our feet to be on train tracks, so not perfectly right behind each other, but on 2 separate tracks. And then as we fold forward, we try to keep our spine as straight as possible. This is where yoga blocks or props come in handy, but no worries if you don't have them. You can brace yourself on this front leg in order to keep the spine nice and straight. We benefit most from this pose by not letting our spine curve to reach towards the floor. It's better to use a prop or brace yourself to keep the spine nice and long. Make sure both hips are pointed towards that front foot and then hinge from the hip, lengthening out through the spine, and then using those props or using the leg to keep your spine in good alignment. 10 rounds of breath on one side, and then as you set yourself up on the other side, inhale as you stand and exhale as you fold forward, noticing maybe this hamstring might be more open or more tight than the other, and just adjust your props accordingly. Coming down onto the floor, set yourself up for a pigeon pose by bringing one shin to the top of the mat and extending the other leg behind you. If there's space in between your hips and the floor, you can prop yourself up with a block or a pillow so that you're able to relax a bit more into this as you try to keep the torso upright. And then as you start to feel more open in the hip, you can start to hinge forward and fold into this. Make sure that both hip bones again are pointed towards the top of your mat and that the top of your knee and foot are on the mat on that back leg. Keeping the torso upright really helps stretch out the front of that hip flexor, and then as you hinge forward, you get deeper into the stretch on the outside of the hip of that bent leg. And then to help open the hips and create even more mobility, we're going to take a supported butterfly. So it helps to sit on a block or pillow to help tilt the pelvis forward a bit as we take the soles of the feet together, knees are bent, and then you can take blocks or pillows underneath the outside of the knees as well to support as you try to find space here, sitting up as tall as you can, keeping the spine nice and long, and staying right here if this is enough of a stretch. And then only when you can begin to find more space, you can start to fold forward, bringing the chest and head down towards your feet. I hope these have been helpful. Yoga is such a great partner to anyone who runs even just on occasion. Mobility and strength are vital for keeping ourselves safe and preventing injury in high impact sports. Thanks for flowing with me. I'll see you next time.